Alrighty. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to InDesign Basics. My name is Caitlin, and I am a Public Services Librarian Senior with Plano Public Library, and I will be presenting today's program. I am assisted by Jess, who will be monitoring the chat and assisting with today's program. Please say hi, Jess.
Well,
So before we begin, I do need to let you know about some ground rules that we've set up for today's program. So you will be muted during today's class, and we have your video blocked. You will only ever see the instructor's screen, but at the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer. You are welcome to ask questions or request that the instructor repeat information at any time during today's program. You should see an icon at the bottom or top of your screen that says chat. You can click on that to open the chat window. Chat is set to be seen by library staff only. If you prefer, however, you may also use the Q&A feature located again at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. Please note that any inappropriate questions or comments will cause your immediate removal from today's class. For all questions, we may answer you directly in the chat or Q&A box, hold the question until a break or the end of class, or ask the question at the time if it is pressing. On our website, we have additional resources such as databases that supplement today's programs. We will be using the instructor's screen to demonstrate and may share additional resources in the chat as well. A recording of today's program will be available in a few days on the Plano Public Library YouTube channel. So if you would like to watch today's program again and practice with the recording later, that is an option. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump into what we're talking about today. Now, first things first, this is our class overview. Um, this is kind of our guideline for what we hope we're going to have time enough to get through today. Before we jump into all of that, I do have to share a quick disclaimer, which is that I am not a design expert. I am a librarian. Today's purpose for the class is to provide a general overview of the InDesign software and how to use it for various projects. And most importantly, information in this program was accurate as of the time of this program. Software updates all the time, so it may happen that you access this program 6 months later and there's some changes to it based on updates provided by Adobe. So we just want you to be aware of that. However, should you need some graphic design expertise, we highly encourage you to make use of access to a resource like LinkedIn Learning or Udemy that is free with a Plano Public Library card. All right, so again, with that out of the way, let's hop into InDesign. So I'm going to very quickly switch my screen to the Adobe software, share. I'm just going to check with Jess real quick. Are y'all seeing the InDesign software?
we are, and I put the link to the handout for today's program in the chat as well.
So much. And please do feel free to open that PDF that Jess linked in the chat. It does cover everything we will be going over for today's class. All right, so let's talk InDesign. So when you initially open the InDesign software, you will come to this screen with the welcome message and a bunch of options for how to either open a project or create a new one. In some instances, if you open the software right after you've processed some updates, there might be a new window that pops up with a see what's new message. That's not the case today, but just want you to be aware going forward. So let's talk about how to set up your document in InDesign. Now there's a few ways you can do that. You can simply select this blue button over here on the left for new file. You can also select any of these preset options here in the middle. You can also go up to the very top menu on the left-hand side and click File, go down to New, and select New Document. Today, I'm just going to click on that blue button for New File. Center that a little bit more. And whichever option you select, it will open this new document window. First thing we're going to do is over here on the right-hand side, we're going to go ahead and change this preset details from untitled to class example doc. Now underneath that, you can see we've got width and height, and it's in a different unit of measurement. So it's currently set to picas, um, which is a very precise measurement for computer. We're not going to work in that. The other option, if you've used any previous iteration of InDesign, would be points. We're not going to work in that today either. So no worries, we're going to stick to inches and just keep that really familiar in terms of measurements. Now, going through the rest of it, there's a lot of terms here. If you scroll all the way down, there are also a lot of options. So we're going to review these really quickly. For now, we're going to go ahead and keep this letter size. However, everything you do here for your preset details, you want to make sure you're thinking about your end product in mind. So if you're hoping to create a book, if you're hoping to create a brochure, if you're wanting to design a postcard, those are all things that you can do in InDesign. But you want to make sure you set up your document accordingly. Because if you're looking to do a postcard, we would definitely want to adjust those measurements here. You can also, at the top here, select print, web, mobile for some preset measurements. We're not going to mess with any of these, but it's a good place to start if you're trying to get some ideas. And you can also see that once we click on one of those, it will reset our measurements. So we're just going to change that back to inches real quick. Now, below that are these two icons for orientation. If you hover over it, it will also pop up with a text message. So right now it is in portrait orientation. That is what we want. You can also see that facing pages became selected once I clicked on print options. Facing pages, just to show you really quick, I'm going to click this preview button. When you have multiple pages in your document, so let's say I had 10, it may or may not allow me to do this, but facing pages creates a booklet style layout where if I were to scroll down, let's see, let me, no. Okay, with this window open, I can't scroll down and show y'all, but the next preview of pages would have two on the left and right of the screen, sort of like a wide layout, versus if I don't have this option selected, you will just see one page per spread as you scroll down throughout your document preview. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 10 because I'm going to show you how you can still make changes to your setup after you click this bottom create option. If you are working with multiple pages, you also have the option to indicate what's the starting number page that you want to work with. And you also have the option to insert a primary text frame. Unless you know exactly what you're doing, I wouldn't recommend starting off with that from the get-go. Underneath that, you have columns. So if you were to increase this, we're just going to move this down. You can see it will automatically apply some column margins on your page. So this is great if you're trying to create a brochure or any kind of specific formatting, like maybe a magazine format, and you want to have some very clear formatting guidelines for how you're inserting content. But we're going to stick with just one, which takes us back to a normal page. And you can also increase that column gutter, which again, if you have a column, if you were to increase that, all that does is increase your margin in between. But we're not going to worry about columns today. Now your margins here, they're going to default to 0.5 inches, so half an inch all the way around. If you're looking to do any kind of book formatting, just be aware that your margins are going to be dependent on the publisher that you select. So whoever's going to do your printing or if you're going to do any kind of online work. And that means that your margins all the way around the edge will probably be different to make that change because right now they're all linked. So that's what this chain link icon is over here. It freezes all four of these measurements together. So if I were to type in here 7.5 and enter, it changed it all the way around. I also accidentally, when you click enter, it will go ahead and default to create. That's okay. We're just going to go ahead and and go to this properties panel. Um, Properties panel will give you all the same options minus a few. If you're really wanting to see everything, you can go back to File and down to Document Setup, and it will bring up a smaller version of that same Create new document page. So I was going to go over this with y'all anyhow. This is all literally the same as what was in the right-hand side of that new document window. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that down to one page for now. I'm going to unclick that linked. So right now, make all settings the same, turning that off. And I personally like a smaller margin. Oh, so it was on. Okay. But if you wanted that to be different, which is what I'm trying to show you, but it's a little, okay, there we go. So you want to make sure it's showing that link with the line through it if you're in this window. It's a little bit easier to tell that, which option it is in the new document window, in my opinion, but okay. Now below that, you have bleed and slug. Bleed is really an important option if you're planning on doing any kind of cover page or add graphics and you want that graphic to be printed all the way to the edge of your page. Um, a bleed tells your printer, hey, I want my page to be 8.5 by 11, but I want this graphic printed to the edge. So I'm adding a 0.25 bleed, for instance, um, all the way around my document to, and what they will do with that information is then cut it down. They'll print the graphic to that bleed and then they'll cut the paper down to size. If we click preview, you can see it creates a red window around the edge, and that's what the printer would print your document at to get that graphic all the way to the edge. So this is important if you're doing any kind of cover page design or title page or anything like that with a lot of graphics. Um, and this also does impact digital design in case you're thinking about doing any kind of digital publishing as well. Now below that is slug. Slug is kind of a registration mark for instructions to a printer. That's predominantly what I have seen it used for. Um, but if you're just getting started, you're not going to be dealing with special effects like spot color or anything like that. I would say you don't need to worry about it as much, but just so you can see what it looks like. It creates this blue line around, and you can be a little bit more specific with it and make it just one specific spot to the left or right. It's completely up to you. But if you are going to be working with a printer, just make sure you note how they like those instructions. All right, we're going to change that back to 0, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. So that is your project setup in InDesign. And again, just to review, if you, like me, hit enter on the keyboard and you close out of that window a little too soon, it's not the end of the world. You can go back up to File and Document Setup, or you can actually go up here to Window if you don't have the Properties panel open already, and you can select Properties to open more options for your page. Are there any questions about project setup?
Not at
I'm
this time, looks like.
okay. Thank you. Feel free to ask questions at any time. All right, let's go on to our next thing, which is talking about our workspace here. So some of this I've mentioned in passing when setting up our page, um, but I'm going to start off up here in the left-hand corner. Right now it says Essentials Classic with a drop-down. This is called your workspace switcher, and this allows you to configure your workspace to however you like and prefer to work in InDesign. Um, for myself, uh, I I prefer Essentials Classic. I've been working with InDesign for close to a decade at this point, and I personally don't like the new Essentials. Just to switch to that real quick, it takes away this top ribbon option and adds in another panel, like full length panel. And that's just personally not how I like to work. Now you can customize this by opening more panels and saving it as a new workspace. I just want to mention that now to let you know that you can work in InDesign exactly however you like to do. This is just how I prefer to work in InDesign. So with that in mind, you've got your top menu items here along the top right hand. You've got a home button, which if you click home, it will take you back to this screen here. You should be able to click that back button, which will take you back to the workspace here. Now, everything from file through help are options for the software. So file, like I said, gives you all your basic menu options as well as the document options. And we'll cover more of this throughout the class. Edit contains most of your normal edit controls, such as copy and paste. Um, it also has software preferences in here. Those are a little bit more advanced. Layout covers, again, like it says, layout controls, type, everything related to font and some special characters. Object, all about some graphics and layout with that. So the key things I'll mention here are the transform, arrange, and grouping options. Um, Another special note though is you can generate a QR code from this menu. InDesign also has the capability to create tables. Um, then there is view options, which is just if you need to zoom in, zoom out. There's a few different ways to do everything in InDesign. So these top menus, everything included in these menus can be done in multiple ways. You can also zoom in the bottom left-hand corner here.
We had a
Um,
question. What is the benefit of being able to generate a QR code?
a great question. So maybe you're creating a flyer in InDesign and you want to link to a scheduling resource, or you want to be able to link them to a shop page if you have a company or something, or a Evite for instance, or a menu. Those are all things that you can do with a QR code. When you generate one in InDesign, it will have you insert a link to embed in that QR code. So it's really useful if you're trying to do any kind of promotion or just create a easy link. For instance, if you're creating a business card and you want to have a QR code on the back of it, that links to maybe your LinkedIn page or your company page or anything like that. It's a really way to promote without just having a dead website listed. So this becomes a little bit more active. Does that answer your question?
It looked like it. It looked like it was based on how it was originally presented. They thought it was a QR code to the document for like
Oh,
proofreading.
okay. Um, so the only way you could have it be a QR code to the InDesign file would be if you publish this online for someone else to view, which would be an option. Um, but no, this would be an outside link. So everything in InDesign is layout based, right? This is first and foremost a formatting software. So you can format your books, you can format flyers, you can create mock-ups of websites, um, and design pretty much whatever you're looking for. I've mentioned business cards earlier. You can do letterhead here. Um, really endless options. Um, but if you're looking to hmm, get maybe additional eyes on what you're creating, what you're designing, um, that's where we're going to go to the share button here. And it's going to ask you to save, but you can usually generate a link or you can invite someone to view your file as a PDF. Um, or if you are working collaboratively and they also have InDesign, I believe there's a way to share the file that way. So I hope that helps. Um, Kind of jumping it back into this file menu overview though, this next option here is window, and this controls your workspace. So if you forgot where the workspace switcher was, you can always go up here to window, down to workspace, and you can switch your organization of workspace that way here. Um, you can also change how you view certain things, like your tabs and organization. Um, I personally just like the default. I don't really mess with that option too much. But everything underneath, these are how you view everything over here on the right. This section here is called your panels. And so just how I have this properties tab open and it has another window adjacent there, um, you can really curate your workspace very effectively by opening various panels. So if you know that you're going to be doing a lot of um, a lot of work with objects or text or anything like that, you can make this again very specific to whatever project you're looking to do. Um, and that's why there's so many different types of workspaces, is because Adobe has auto-generated workspaces based on different project types. Again, I said it before, you have to think about your end goal, the end goal of your project, right? Are you looking to print? Are you looking to publish online? Do you need special features? For instance, the interactive for PDF switcher, when you open your workspace for that, it opens a lot more hyperlink buttons and forms. Um, Panels that are really great for creating interactive PDF forms. So if you filled out any kind of um, specific PDF that has purple form fields on there, or they have drop-down boxes that you have to select, It was probably first designed in InDesign and then saved as a PDF. Again, we're going to switch back to Essentials Classic and continue our quick overview here. So that's a little bit about panels. We'll jump into more options here as we proceed with today's content. Um, Now, this big area with the page in the middle, that this is truly our workspace. This is the layout area, and everything on the page um, ends up on the page, but anything that you add to the gray does exist as well. It just won't end up on the page. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, over here on the left, this is our toolbar. And you can see right now this black arrow at the very top. This is our selection tool, is kind of a darker gray. Anytime you switch tools, so if I click this type tool, now that is a darker gray. So that's how you can tell which tool you have selected. This is pretty important, and I'll explain why. Um, so right now I've got the text tool selected. So I will go ahead and click and draw a text box on the entirety of the page. And you can see I've got a type cursor at the top here now, but I still have the text tool selected. So I can click and draw off and type example. And I can click back on this other text field and again, type example. But let's say I don't want, don't really mean to be drawing text boxes. I really want to just select and maybe adjust the size. Maybe this text box here is too big. Because I have that text tool selected, I actually can't adjust that on either. See, I can't see any of the external corners or anything. I can just drag and drop to create a new box. I'm going to Control Z and delete that third one I created. Same for if I were to select this rectangle frame tool. Now I can see the exterior points because that's the last box I had selected. However, if I try and click and adjust that here, all I did is create another rectangle. Same if I were to click and draw a box here, but what I really wanted to do is select this text box. It won't allow me to because that's not the tool I have selected. So unless you just want to be drawing a bunch of boxes, I be very aware of what tool you have selected. So if you get stuck in this, it's okay. Key things to remember here are you can always click the escape key on your keyboard, which should default you back to this selection tool. Or again, just always remember the black arrow. Not to be confused with the white arrow, because the white arrow is the direct selection tool. And if you select that, you can move objects, but if you are trying to move a rectangle, for instance, that had content in it or a picture, it's actually used to adjust things within a frame normally. So what we want to do is actually click that black arrow, and now you can see we can adjust size of any of our text boxes on this page or on the side of a page. And you may have noticed that based on each tool I have selected, this top ribbon right here has adjusted. So this right now, I've got a box selected that changed this top ribbon again to a lot more options. And if I were to select this top box here, same options, but if I switch to the text tool, I now have font options and alignment options. And you can actually switch in some cases, your ribbon will have more options. like this one. There's the character formatting controls and the paragraph formatting controls. Um, I just want to share again really quickly. There are, again, a million and one different ways to do the same thing in InDesign. So if you don't remember this method, but you remember a different way to do the same thing, that is, again, perfectly okay. Um, so you can find character styles and paragraph styles over here. Um, these This panel is really one of my favorite panels in InDesign because it allows you to very quickly pre-save um, styles that you can use across many different types of files. Now, if you um, click this plus button in the paragraph style menu and double click that new paragraph style, you can go to basic character format and select any kind of font that you like. You can adjust the size. And if you have a text box selected, it will automatically adjust to whatever you're selecting at that time. And again, that preview button was still selected, so it is showing that in live time. Once you click OK, it applies. And then any text that you want to auto apply something, that is how you would do it. I also could have gone up to this menu and selected any kind of font here to do the same thing. What I like about the paragraph style option is that it allows you to come back later and reapply something. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about panels. I started with paragraph styles here and how it's a great tool to quickly apply settings. Um, but it's not the only panel option you have here. Um, Up above, we have this align panel, which is probably my next favorite because anytime you work in InDesign, um, it's you place content on here. And look at that, I already forgot what tool I had. So Control Z to delete that text box, switch to the black arrow. Um, so you've been seeing how I just have been creating random boxes on this page. Um, Now you can click and drag it. You can move boxes with your keyboard like I am now. Um, but if you want things to be aligned specifically, and you don't trust that you can eyeball it, InDesign will make this very easy. So if I want this box that I'm dragging around to be centered on the page, what you're looking for are these pink lines that appear. So I've got a pink and green line kind of crisscrossing right now. And what that is showing is that I have aligned this box here vertically and horizontally with another box. Now, if I move this up and I've got two pink lines now, that is centered on the page. Um, that's what those pink lines are. And it's really, really great if you're trying to get centered either horizontally or vertically. Um, how, and these green lines here, see if I can get one of those to show again. Okay, there's another green line and it's aligning with that text box at the top. Um, that's aligning to another object on your page. However, you may not have the patience to click and drag and apply that directly like that, right? Because even just trying to get one of those to pull up, it took a little bit longer than maybe you want to when you're actively working on a project. Um, that's where this align menu comes into play because it will very easily be like, okay, I'll align along to the left edge. Now, you can see I clicked that with this box selected and it didn't do anything. And that's because it's set to align to selection. Now, if you wanted this to be on the left side of the page um, or margins, you'd want to click that drop down and change that setting. So if we select page and then align that left, it's now lined up with the very edge of that page. Now we can look at that and go, that's actually too far over. I need that to be within the margins. Click that drop down, change it to margins, and it will automatically switch. Now, if you wanted multiple things to be aligned, so for instance, we're going to go ahead and click that box and shift and click for these two other boxes here. We're going to change it to align to selection and align to left. So that selection is now aligned, but it's off the page. Controls, Control Z real quick. And what we're going to do is change this to align to key object, which was previously grayed out. Key object is whichever object you selected first. Now, when we select align to left, it pulls those other two rectangles onto the page because that is where the first object that I selected was. Which is a lot faster than trying to drag everything over and get it aligned exactly, especially if you're working with a more unique layout. Now, what's nice is this align to option will stick with whatever option you had had last used with your current selection. Now, if I click off and then I click an object or the same three rectangles, um, it's going to have me select again one of those options. It'll default to align to selection. So just something to note when we're working with a bunch of different objects. Um, Now, when you're in InDesign, the three most common tools you're going to work with are going to be this black arrow, text tool, and this frame tool, which is why I've been working predominantly with those three. Now, I say that because you're not going to just work with these objects, right? And you can see I'm trying to grab that rectangle right now, and it's not happening, and that's because of the current arrangement. So up here in object, you can see arrange, and what I have currently selected, I can send it back. And now I can click and drag that little rectangle out of the way. Another way to get to that rectangle is to select your layers and whatever has this blue little square highlighted, that is what you currently have selected. For instance, if I click this example, it switches there. You can see just again that change of highlighting. Um, but back to rectangles and why these three tools are important. It's because you're going to again be adding content. So you can actually import text from other applications like Microsoft Word. You can also import your graphics in the same way. So InDesign does not use a insert function for things, for text or graphics. That's not how it functions overall. Instead, you link text and you link graphics and objects in this software. And the reasoning behind that is because it wants to ensure it has the highest quality possible in your project. So this all comes back to the resolution of graphics and the quality of your text. So if we wanted to embed things in this project, um, it's a lot easier if you decide on your formatting ahead of time rather than just uploading some graphic. And I'm going to show you what I mean really quick. Um, so placing graphics without any rectangle selected works like this. You will go to File and Place, or you will use the keyboard shortcut of Control D. Once you're there, you're going to select an image. And once you do, you can see it kind of loads into your cursor. So this is my mouse that I'm moving across the screen. And if I click off, it's now huge. It's going to be whatever size um, the source material object was. Now, this is a lot bigger than maybe I intended to have on the page. So I'm going to actually undo, and now I'm going to load that same image, but with a frame selected. So I'm doing Control D on the keyboard this time. I'm going to select my image, and you can see now it placed directly into that frame. It isn't proportional, but here's how you fix that. You right click and you go to fitting, and you can go to fit content proportionally. You can also go to fitting and fill frame proportionally. And if it looks pixelated or anything like that, you right click, and in this menu that appears, you change that display setting to high quality display. And it should no longer look too pixelated. Um, this one wasn't too bad that I uploaded. Um, However, you can also click on that frame and adjust it to fit the image that you uploaded. Um, are there any questions about placing graphics? I'm going to go ahead and do that again just so y'all can see. Again, it's File, Place, or Control D. And I'm going to choose a different image here. If you want to change how it loaded into a frame, right click, go to Fitting, fill frame proportionally, or fit content proportionally. If you end up with white space, but you want the entirety of the image, you can right click, go to fitting, and actually fit frame to content, and it will auto adjust that frame to the image. I'm going to do undo real quick, fitting, and if you go to fit content to frame, it just stretches your image to fit the frame. It's whatever you're looking for with what you're placing into your file. There's also a center content option. Now you can see whenever I hover over this image, a hand is popping up, and it's the same on whichever image I select. Um, that is actually the white arrow features kind of popping up, and you can see that when I click and drag, it pulls up this sort of orange frame. And all that is allowing you to adjust where that content falls in that frame without adjusting the size of the frame. Now, if you do that and you don't like where it ended up, just click on that white arrow and you can adjust that image in that frame. And then switch back to your black arrow. Okay. Now, as far as image types that you can place in InDesign, InDesign has a lot of different options. It will allow you to do JPEG, PNG, vector files, SVG. It will also work with Illustrator files. I think it has like 12 different options. So I think it runs the gamut. So if you have an iPhone or an Android and you want to use an image from your phone, it should read those images without any trouble.
Had a patron ask, how do you add a background color fill to set off some of the text?
Okay, that's a great question. So if we wanted to have a background for behind this example text, there's two different ways you could do this. You could either select this text field here and go to our color panel here. You can see that when we open this panel, there are two squares overlapping. You will also see those squares overlapping over here on the toolbar. And right now they are kind of empty with a red slash through it, right? So this is your fill. It's that full square. Now, if you click on the square underneath it, you can see it's just the edge. That is because that's your frame outline. That's your stroke weight. So we're going to go ahead and click the fill. And let's just say we wanted a green. So this is how you could add a background color just to that text field. However, let's say you didn't like that because you can see this text, no matter if you raise or lower it, it doesn't quite give you that extra color above the text there. So we're going to switch that back to none. I'm going to go ahead and make that text field a little smaller, drop it down. Instead, we're going to, again, click this rectangle field here. We're going to click that previous color I had and drag it up. So like I said, there's a million different ways to do different things in InDesign. If you wanted to add a different color behind some text, here are two different ways you can do so. And if you wanted to change the color of your text, um, you'd want to, in that color panel, switch from the frame, which is also called a container, and switch that to the text. Now you've got the fill for the text, and you've got the stroke for the text. And you can see it kind of switches from white to black. It's not the only color option you have. It just may not default to showing you more. What I would recommend is you kind of jump down to the swatches menu, this panel here, and click one of the defaults if you're looking for a different option. And maybe we'll play with this kind of bright pink. Then you can go back up to color and kind of play with different gradients. And if you're like, I don't like any of those, white, it's always an option. Then you can click on that stroke and you could give it a black outline. So that was a great question. And if these are features that you like with your text, you can, again, always save it as a style. You can get into character color here and adjust that. You can also then save it. If you wanted to rename something as well, click on it and you could name it as a heading and generate a subheading and so forth, such with. Are there any questions about what I just covered? Okay. I'm gonna take that as a not at this time. I know we're getting down to the last few minutes of today's class. So the last thing I want to talk about before we cover how to save and export your projects is this top um, panel option for pages. So you can see right now, we just have one page. If we have that selected blue and click create new page, that will add new pages to your document, and it will default to select the next page. However, you can scroll up in your workspace to easily get to a new page. You can also see that there's a break in between each page, and that's why this gray area is called a spread, and that spread is assigned to that one page. Um, you can also change the size here, and you can also show or hide spreads in your document. Now, up above this preview for pages is a parent page, and you can make this top portion bigger, smaller. Right now, we just have the one. Now, if you double click on that page there, it will actually take you to that A parent, and it's one page right now. Um, and you can, when you look at your page preview, you have A at the very top. If you were to create a new parent and click and drag that parent onto a page, it applies that parent page settings to that page. Now, what do I mean by that? If I were to click and drag on with my rectangle tool, I want a picture in the middle of this page. And when I click on page 2, you can see that there's now a frame there and dots. And that is because whatever I um, assign to that parent page there, if I were to place a graphic in that picture in that frame and I go to B, it will automatically apply there. So parent pages are a really great way to allow quick application of items to multiple pages, such as page numbers or logos, headers or footers, paragraph styles, etc. Um, any change that you make to a parent page will affect all pages with that parent page applied. So again, they're really, really great for creating set layouts of repeated page elements, like the first page of a book chapter, newsletter, or other repeated page formatting. So I wanted to make sure that you saw this feature before the end of class, play around with it, figure out what works or doesn't work. If you want to know more about parent pages, we have on our YouTube channel a Create a Book recorded class, which covers a lot more information about parent pages and this styles panel here. Now it is specific to book formatting, but you can take a lot of those features and apply it to other projects. Now we're going to go back to our page 1. And with our last 6 minutes, I want to make sure I show you how to save and export your file in InDesign. Now, File and Save or Save As will allow you to save your project wherever you like. It will retain whatever you named this file when you set up your project, and it will save it as an INDD file, which is an InDesign document, which means that it will be specific to the InDesign software. Now, you can also save it as a template, but unless you know that you're using a format over and over again, I would recommend starting with a document. Now, InDesign also will allow you to export. You can get to this option for export by clicking File Export or doing the keyboard shortcut of Control E, which will again pull up this export window, and you have a few options to export. You can export as a PDF, an interactive PDF, EPS document, an EPUB document, HTML, JPEG, PNG, or even XML. Now there's a couple different reasons for this. Maybe the person you want to share this document with doesn't have InDesign, then a PDF, which is an open source format, is probably a great option. Or you created um, a more graphic outline and you have to upload it in a certain format, like maybe a PNG. Just consider those factors whenever you're creating your project. These are the current options within InDesign for exporting your project for use outside of InDesign. So this has been your InDesign Basics class. Um, we do still have about 3 minutes. So if you have any specific question on how to do something in InDesign, please feel free to post it in the chat. Um, Jessica did post the class handout for today's class in the chat, which does review everything we've covered today, um, and has perhaps a little bit more background information on stuff. If I used any kind of terminology you were unfamiliar with, there's also a definition page in that handout for terminology specific to InDesign. But I hope you learned quite a bit, and I hope you're excited to embark on some projects in InDesign. If you don't have the InDesign access at home and have a Plano Public Library card, you are welcome to visit any of the 5 public library locations in Plano to either make use of our Adobe computer on the public floor, or you can actually reserve online, planolibrary.org, a 2-hour reservation per day in our digital creation space, which does have access to the Adobe software as well. So we'll stay online for 2 more minutes. See if y'all have any other questions. If not, I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you would prefer to send an email for your questions, I'll switch my screen back to the PowerPoint. And you're welcome to send an email if you have a question. Um, we also do have a resource called Book a Librarian that you can make use of on our website to book a free 30-minute one-on-one session for a question or a reference question, which does include InDesign. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for attending today's class. This class will be uploaded to our YouTube channel in the next few days. So have a great rest of your day, everyone.